This is a deal that will set me up for life, generating over $100,000 a month in free cash flow, and I almost let it slip through my fingers. I want to talk about our 73 unit and how we bought that with no money down, with no investors, how we refinanced out the seller carryback note. We're getting into technical details and talking about all the ins and outs of this deal, the twists and turns. We finally have gotten it refinanced, stabilized, and bought out all of our other general partners. Tune into this episode. It's groundbreaking, and you can use this exact strategy to buy your own apartment complex. Welcome to Unlock Your Life. I've got an exciting episode today. We're gonna break down an apartment complex that we bought with no money down, with no investors. Then we bought out all of our other partners. This is a deal that will change my life. Guys, if I never do another deal again, my retirement is set. But it hasn't been an easy journey. There have been some bumps along the way. You may have heard me talk about this deal, but now we have gone full cycle. This is a deal I've owned now for almost 5 years. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of twists and turns. I want to give you the nitty gritty with all the numbers, all the cash flow, the good, the bad, the ugly. So stay tuned. We're gonna dig into it right now. So back in 2019, early 2020, Yaden, my partner and cousin, was driving home from our 19 unit that we owned in Panopolis, Moncks Corner area, South Carolina. This is a suburb of Charleston, Summerville, and he drove by a complex that was boarded up, a lot of trash laying around, a lot of cars in the parking lot, and he thought, you know what, that might be an opportunity. This looks like somebody that is probably having trouble, not collecting much rent, and maybe they'd want to sell. And he took a wrong turn on the way home and accidentally drove by this place. But when he saw it, he saw opportunity. So he looked up the lady's information, he cold called her, and lo and behold, she said, yeah, we were trying to sell it, it fell through, but we would be interested in talking with you. So Yaden set up a meeting, we talked with the lady, we got the numbers, and guys, this was a distress deal. It was 76 units, right? So 73 apartments and 3 single family houses, and they were pretty distressed. Half the units had never even been finished, never got a certificate of occupancy issued. There was still a lot of construction that needed to be done on it. So, right out the gate, it's 50% vacant. And then a good chunk of the tenants were not paying. This lady lived in the community. She lived really close. I think probably some of these tenants were taking advantage of her. She's letting them go and not pay and stay and pay a little here and there. The collections were pretty abysmal. I think she was only collecting maybe $15,000, $16,000 a month on a 76 unit complex. So by the numbers, it doesn't look great, but there is a lot of real estate there. There's a lot of units there. We like the area. We already own a 19 unit right down the road. And so we said, listen, we would like to buy this from you. We've run the numbers on it. Because of the condition and needing all this fixing up, we can only offer you $1.9 million. And that number, it may seem like a low number, but this thing needed a $1.5 million rehab before we even started, and we're gonna bring burning cash for 2 years. And she said, no, that's too low, I can't take that. And so Yaden and I put our heads together and we thought, okay, well, if we were gonna pay 1.9, we'd have to raise, probably 500 grand plus some of the rehab, and it would be a lot of money. We'd have to get a loan, we'd have to bring in investors, we'd have to split up the deal. What if she carried our down payment? How could we structure that way? And so we came back to her and said, well, what do you want? She said, I want $2.5 million. I really want $2.5 million for this deal. That's what I'll sell it for. And so we proposed this option. We said, hey, what if you get $1.5 million at closing and then you loan us $1 million for 2 years? Would that work? So we'll buy it for $2.5 million, but you're only going to get $1.5 million at closing, and you're going to owner finance at like 4.5%. The additional $1 million. And once we fix it all up and we stabilize it, we're going to refinance or we're going to sell, and we'll be able to give you your last $1 million. What do you think? And so they thought about it, they discussed it, and they wanted us to see what is our credit worthiness, like can we handle this? Do we have what it takes to do this? But there was also some pain and motivation. She didn't want to manage the property herself. She was doing all the work, and there was a couple different brothers and sisters that owned this property, and she wanted it to be off her plate. So eventually they did agree to that. So we now go to a bank. We say, okay, we're under contract for $2.5 million. And the $1 million that they were lending us was not going to be a second mortgage. It was just an unsecured loan with a promissory note. So it was not attached to the property at all. So the bank looks at the deal and they say, okay, you've got $2.5 million, you need $1.5 million renovation. This is a total deal of $4 million. We'll loan you 80% of that. We'll loan you $3.2 million, and you need to come up with $800,000 to close it. Well, we were kind of coming up with $1 million in seller financing from the lady, so we could actually buy this. And if you do the math on that, our basis is 4.2, and we are actually getting $200,000 cash at closing, which we were going to then add to the renovation. The renovation money and finish up the project in case we ran short and we needed more carrying costs. So we got the loan, we closed the deal. At the closing, the bank funded, and we actually funded the $1 million briefly. And then when they dispersed, they only dispersed to her $1.5 million. They dispersed $1 million back to us. So we really didn't have any cash in the deal. We did need $1 million for like one day, but we didn't need it long term. And we got the deal, and no investors and no money down, no money out of pocket. I mean, we literally had, no real estate. And the next day we owned 76 units with none of our own cash in the deal, and we didn't have to split it up. But there was 5 partners in the deal. There was Yaden, myself, and actually 4 partners, and then 2 other guys who helped us get that loan. Because remember, this was back in 2019. I could not get that loan at that time. This was, I think, the 3rd deal that I had bought. And so we got to work. We had a property management company who had a contractor arm, and we set to work getting the COs and finishing up these units and trying to lease up the units. And it was a slog, right? The stuff costed a little bit more than we thought. It took longer than we thought. But eventually we got to the point where we were 85% occupied, and it was there. But 2 years had already passed. And remember, I had told the lady, I'm going to refinance you within 2 years, but the deal was we could get a 1-year extension. So we paid $10,000 to get that 1-year extension, and we kept working our plan, and we kept trying to push the NOI up, and it was just really, really slow. And all of a sudden, we've got a lot of delinquency on the property. We've got a lot of tenants not paying, and even though we're done with the rehab, we still have like 20-30% not paying us. And that's a big deal in property management. So we decided to part ways. They got us to a certain level, but we parted ways, and we switched up property management companies. And this property management company was based out of Virginia. They did a great job. They got the delinquency down. They filled up the units, but they were remote, right? So we had a local maintenance guy and a local leasing agent, but nobody was really keeping a close eye on the property. And another year slips by. And so we go back to the lady and said, listen, we still can't refinance. Now we're 3 years in. Will you give us another extension? And they said, yes, we'll give you another year to extend, but the rate's not going to be 4.5% anymore. We want it to jump up to 6% or 7%. And so now our monthly payment's going up higher on that. But we kept working the deal, and we said, you know what? I don't know that we're ever going to be able to get enough refinance proceeds. Because if you think about the economy, now rates are going way up. We can't get as much proceeds. Banks aren't lending as much. I'm like, dude, we got to sell this thing. We just need to sell it. We'll make our money and we'll get rid of it. And that'll be that. And so the broker looked at it. He said, look, I think you can get $7 million for this property all day long. $7 million. I said, man, if I could get $7 million, because I've amortized some debt in here, I'm in it for 4, we make $3 million. Like, I'm good with that. Let's do it. So we listed for 7, and it was probably one of the worst times to sell. rates keep climbing, expenses keep climbing, insurance is going up, taxes is going up. And man, we got offers on the property, but the best offer we got was $5.6 million, which is still a win. I mean, we would have made $1.6 to $1.8 million at that price, but we had put so much work into this thing, and this was a great deal, and we had it at a good basis. And we talked, we're like, do we really want to just let this thing go for $1.5 million that's split up 4 ways? Like, I don't love that. I'd rather keep the faith and keep working it, but it's not going to work with the current management company because they're too far removed, and it's too expensive for us to keep paying this management fee. And the most painful thing about this deal was it still was not carrying its costs. By the time we paid the bank and by the time we paid the seller financing note, we didn't ever have enough for taxes. So every year we're having to inject, $40, $50, sometimes $80,000 to do that. We didn't borrow enough to do all the renovations. We still had to redo parking lots. There were roofs that are probably going to go bad eventually. Like, this thing kind of seemed like, man, just sell it, just get rid of it. And I remember walking out there one day and walking around, and I mean, there was still trash laying around. There was still bikes and mattresses and crap on people's porches. And I'm looking at the tenant base and I'm like, man, I don't even want this property. Like, just sell this property. I was so discouraged with the condition of it. And I've been working this deal for literally like 3.5 years at this point. And I just was almost beat. But something in me still wanted to keep that because it was in my local market, and I knew that there was good rents and good rent appreciation. If I could hang on to this deal, it would be a good deal. And so we ended up talking together as a team. We said, look, what if we brought Crystal, my sister, in? She's managing our self-storage facility. She's doing a great job. What if we gave her 10% equity in this deal? We give it up out of me and Yaden's piece and help manage this property. And let's take this property management in-house. We used to manage our own properties. Let's do it again. Let's manage this thing. Let's make it work. We'll take over Panopolis. We've already got the self-storage. That's a pretty good little chunk of properties. If we could do that, I think we could make it cash flow. I think we could keep it. I think we could get the net operating income up. And I think we could refinance out the seller. And I think we could hold it. We could hold it long term. Well, our partners, they kind of wanted to sell it. They were like, well, we don't want to do capital injections. We don't want to put money in this deal. So we kind of would rather you sell it, but they weren't the majority owners, and they kind of deferred to us. And so we kept going on it. And we ended up taking the management in-house. And you know what? The numbers got better because we're now running it leaner, and we don't have to take a management fee if we're trying to escrow for the taxes. And so we could just run it a lot skinnier on the financials than the other management company had. And we started to make progress, and we started to fill up and get into 95, 97, 98% occupancy. We got rid of the maintenance guy. We found out, man, this guy is like a joke. He's not doing anything. He's complaining. He's fighting with the leasing agent who's actually good. We got to get rid of him. We replaced him with an awesome proper management guy or maintenance guy who got stuff done, got the work orders done, worked well with the property manager, and it started to click. And it really started clicking. We got a handle on the trash, and we got a handle on the overages, and we audited all the financials, and we got this thing running clean and lean and mean and doing really, really well. And I said, hey, you know what? Let's refinance it. So I go to Rev Federal Credit Union has the underlying loan. So remember, at this point, their loan balance is only like $3.7 million because we've paid it down for the last 4 years. And I go to them, or no, I'm sorry, it's $2.7 million because the $1 million was the seller carry. So their mortgage is $2.7 million on a property that we're getting offers for 5.6, that's appraised for 7. I mean, their risk factor in this deal is very, very low. And I think, let me go to them and see if they will just give me a supplemental loan for $1 million to take out this seller. I've got a good loan in place on the underlying loan. Let me see if I can just get a supplemental loan. And I go to them and they say, well, let's see your stabilized financials after 3 or 4 months of you running it, and we'll look at it and see how it goes. But yeah, it looks probably like we could do this. And so we work the deal, the numbers get better and better, and our NOI is creeping up and creeping up. And at this point, we're collecting $72,000, $73,000, $74,000 a month. Remember, when we bought this, We were collecting like 18, 19, 20,000 a month. So we've massively improved the property, but they're looking at what is your net operating income. And at the end of the day, I spent probably 6 months talking with this bank, sharing financials every month, having coffee with them, meeting with them. At the end of the day, they say in like September, October, hey, we don't really want to do this loan. We like where we're at right now. We like our risk level, and we're not going to loan you another $1 million on this deal. And my loan with the seller financing deal is up in November. Now, at this point, she's pushed the rate up to 8% because now we're in year 4. So we've already gone way beyond, our initial promise of 2 years with a 1-year extension. Now we're into year 4, and she wants out. She wants her $1 million, and she wants to move on with her life. And I understand that, and I want to keep my commitment to her. And I tried to by selling it. It didn't work out. We didn't get a good offer. But now I'm getting my hopes crushed because this bank, who's probably our best shot, they understand the property, they understand us. They've already had the loan on it for 3.5, 4 years now. Why wouldn't they do this? But they didn't want to do it. And that kind of shook my confidence. And so I talked to my loan broker that I'd worked with before, and she said, well, why don't we go agency debt? It's a big enough deal. You can get a better rate. You can get better DSCR. Let's go the agency route. And at the same time, there's a tax credit program where you can partner with a nonprofit and eliminate all your property taxes. Eliminate them. Take them to zero. Dude, we're paying $80,000 a year in property taxes. Now you got to donate 20% of what your tax bill would be to the nonprofit. So you take your tax bill from $80,000 to $16,000. That is a huge jump on your net operating income. So I'm in the process of doing this because I want to hold this long term and I want to refinance it. If I can get agency debt, I can get a 10-year fixed loan. I can get probably 3 to 5 years of interest only. I can get rates in the low to mid 6s. Like I can get a good loan. This is going to work. So we take it through. The agency lender is like, yeah, this all looks good. We get about 75, 80% of the way through. And by this point, all my nonprofit partnership work to lower the property taxes has now come to fruition. And as they're pulling title, they say, well, there's some deed restrictions on here because there's some compliance stuff with the low income housing to get this tax credit. They say, you know what? This really doesn't fit this product. We need to start you all over with the agency loan, but we need to do an affordable product. Oh my gosh, we got to start all the way over. Now we're past November. The loan is matured. Now we're still paying her every month and just holding our breath and hoping that she doesn't beat on the door and say, hey, you better pay me right now or I'm suing you. So we're just paying her every month, hoping that she's going to work with us. We're updating her on what's happening, but now it's into December and January, and we're really not anywhere close to refinancing this loan. So we decide to switch to the affordable route, and about 2 or 3 weeks later, they say, you know what? You don't have enough affordable experience. Like, what are you talking about? I've owned this property for 4.5 years. We've been managing it now for like almost a year and a half. Like, what do you mean I don't have the experience to run this property? Well, you don't have enough affordable housing. We need you to have 400 to 500 units to qualify for this loan. So it's okay, but we need you to switch property managers. We need you to get a higher property manager that has a lot more affordable housing experience than you do. And that was like nails on a chalkboard to me, because there is no way that I am giving up the reins. I've already gone through 2 property managers. I'm managing it myself with Crystal and Yaden. It's working well. It's cash flowing well. It's actually clicking and performing and better than it's ever had. And now they want me to switch management companies? There's no way I'm doing that. I don't care how good this loan is. That is not my path. So I called the broker. I said, look, forget it. I'm not doing that. I'm not going down this road. And I thought, we've really improved this property. And yes, Rev said no to us, but that doesn't mean every bank's going to say no to us. So we got on the phones. We called 3 or 4 local regional banks and said, look, this is the situation we're in. What do you think? Can you help us? And one bank, First Capital, they stepped up. They're like, dude, we love the deal. We love this. We like working with you. We've already given you 1 loan. Like, we'd be happy to do this loan. Within 4 hours, I had a term sheet saying that they would take out, the Rev loan and take out the $1 million seller finance, which was huge. Now, the rate was going to be like 7.1, so a little higher, but whatever. They said they could close in 30 days. I want this thing off my plate. I need to get the seller carry note off my back. And so we're talking about proceeds. So now I need to pay off Rev, that's 2.7, and the million for her, that's 3.7. And I'm talking to the guy, the banker, and say, hey, my partners, they don't really want to be on this loan. They don't really want to be on the loan for 5, 10 years. And eventually I want to buy them out. So is it okay if they're not on the loan? Can me and Yaden just sign on the loan by ourselves? He said, yeah, that's fine. But if you want to buy them out, why don't we just bump up your proceeds a little bit and give you the money to buy them out now? He said, I'm going to take into consideration this tax abatement thing you're doing, this partnership with the nonprofit, and I think your NOI is there. Like, I can give you more proceeds. I'm going to bump your proceeds up from 3.7 to 4.1. I'm going to give you another $400,000 in proceeds. That was awesome. That was a game changer. Because in behind the scenes, I had already been negotiating with my partners at a valuation of 5.6, because that was the highest offer we got, to buy out all their equity, which they owned about 29% of this deal, to buy out all their equity for about $350,000. And it was owner financed by them over 3 years. And so we said, yes, that would be awesome. And we worked our way through it. We got the refinance done. They funded us the 4.1. We paid back the seller. We brought her a certified check for $1 million, which was amazing. Felt great to give her that money because she trusted me and she worked with me, and we got it done. And we paid off Rev, and we've got the new loan in place. And then we also had proceeds. And so we got these proceeds. We're replacing parking lots. We're working on some more CapEx stuff. And we have a cash slush fund to pay these owner finance payments and buy my partners out. They signed the forms. They signed all their equity over to us. We signed promissory notes over 3 years to pay them out. They're happy. They're getting passive cash flow. We're happy. And now we own the whole deal ourselves. So I own 40%. Yaden owns 40%, Crystal owns 20%. That was the final breakdown because she's been so integral in getting this thing done. But what does that mean for me? I said in the beginning of the episode, like, this could be a life-changing deal. Well, today we're collecting $80,000 a month in rent on this property. And it's, maybe worth $7 million. Maybe not with the way rates are, but just for today, I'm going to say $7 million. I want you to think 20 years into the future. In 20 years, that loan will be either paid off or very, very close to being paid off. And what do you think the rents are going to be in 20 years? I mean, a conservative estimate is they're going to be double. Instead of collecting $80,000 a month, we're going to be collecting $160,000 a month. And yes, our taxes are going to go up. Well, actually, no, they're not, because we have a tax abatement program on it. But our insurance may go up, but the expenses will increase. But I'm looking at when that mortgage is paid, and we're talking, 20 years into the future of maintaining this property, paying the debt off, and taking care of it, we're talking about $110,000 a month in free cash flow, which is $40,000 to me, $40,000 to Yaden, $20,000 to Crystal. $40,000 a month, that's $480,000 a year in repeatable passive income coming in every month just by keeping the property full and maintained. That's something that people do. They work their whole lives to try and generate something like that that'll give them that kind of income. Most never even achieve that. And in one deal, we've been able to accomplish that. Was it a long road to hoe? Yes. I mean, I talked to you about all the twists and turns of this deal and sticking with it, but we made the turn. The deal is ours. We bought our partners out. We refinanced the seller carryback out. We don't owe any investors any money. And we owe the bank some money, but we will pay that off, and it's on an amortized loan. So we're going to keep on persisting instead of pulling the plug and saying, well, let's sell it right now for $1.6 million, and I'll get 500, 400,000, and dude, that could be frittered away. You're talking about taking 400 grand when 20 years in the future, you'd be making 400 grand every single year until you die, until you sell it. Not to mention that property will probably be worth 12, 14, 15 million dollars. I don't know what it'll be worth at that point, but it's going to be worth more than it is today. And so this is the power of understanding where you're trying to go. If you're working for a living, making $100,000, $200,000 a year, like, do you have a plan to generate $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month in passive income when you're 60, 70, 80 years old? Like, do you have a vehicle to do that? Will you be able to save enough and invest enough, grow your 401k or whatever? Are you even doing that? Because if you're not, this is an incredible vehicle to do that. We were able to do this deal to generate, in the future, $100,000 a month of free cash flow using no money down. Yeah, we had to partner with a guy to help us get the loan, but he's out now. He's not even in the equation. So I want you to think differently of like, how can I control assets? How can I amortize debt? How can I ride appreciation so that I can participate in the market? I can participate in inflation. I can participate in rents that continue to go up, because they will. How can I participate and how can I benefit? How can I insulate myself for that? So that's what I got for you this week. That is the full cycle of start to finish on this deal. I'm super excited that we got it done, and appreciate you tuning in. I'll keep you posted as we continue to, raise rents, operate it, and get those parking lots straightened up. So take some time this week to unlock your life. Peace.